Hello everybody, welcome back to Other Channel. Today we are going to learn a new thing, but before we start, I want you to know that my name is Cindy and this is Other Channel. Please subscribe to the channel. After watching the video, like the video and also share to a friend in need. Okay, and please also make sure that you watch the video to the end, because sometimes the end or getting to the end of the video, more tips will be given. So if you just watch just some few parts and just end it, you might be missing a lot. Thank you very much. So I'll be sharing my screen. Today we'll be talking about hypothesis testing. All right. So I made with the help of the Holy Spirit, I made a PowerPoint to gather what I want to say in the video. So I'll be able to move fast and then also solve examples so that we'll understand better. Okay, so please stay with me throughout the video and you'll surely be blessed. So I'll share my screen now. Just a few seconds. I will worship you forever, love you forever, because okay, so I'm sharing my video. Today's lesson is going to be quite interesting, and I hope and I pray that by the time I'm done, and if you're able to listen to the end, the Holy Spirit will grant you the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge you need in order to proceed and understand better. Amen. All right, so I'll share the PowerPoint first. So there's the PowerPoint. Put it in full screen. All right. So hypothesis testing part 1 made easy because this part is talking about looking at just one population, but we have another part that looks at making hypothesis between two populations or two population parameters. All right, so this is just about one population parameter. All right, so when we talk about hypothesis testing, it's just a claim about something that can be proven true or false based on what research information. So it's just something you say to just it's just a claim, an opinion that people have or hold. Because you've heard this saying that everyone is entitled to his or her own opinion. So if I say that Ghana is a rich country, that is my opinion. It's an hypothesis. It's not being confirmed whether it is what it is true or it is not what it is not true. So that's just a claim. And we have two types of hypothesis. We have the null hypothesis represented by the H subscript 0. So null means 0. So it's like something like an initial thing. You get it? Already know now 0, now 0. So that is how H symbols comes out with, or that is how we get this symbol as H subscript 0. The second one is alternative hypothesis, which is represented by capital H subscript capital A. So you have to take note of how to write these, because when you are in these are their mathematical expressions or ways of writing them in math. So when you're solving questions, you're not going to write null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is this, but instead you will use the symbol to represent it. So you have to make sure you know how to write the symbol. All right. So therefore, we ask null hypothesis, what we need to know. So the null hypothesis is the status quo. It's like something about what the current claim that stands as a null. So when you look at now, the null hypothesis, I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it well, the null or no. It depends on the size of your nose. So the null hypothesis is about a claim that is operating at the moment. So at the moment, people say Ghana is what? A peaceful country. So that is what the initial, that is the claim that stands as of now. Right? So that is what the now hypothesis. So it's like the status quo, what is happening now, what everybody holds on to now. Do you get it? So example is Ghanaians are hospitable. Women are relational beings. Cats are more intelligent than dogs. Quantitative method is straightforward. So like this is something that is standing as of now. That is what null hypothesis, initial claim. So all these examples are what stands now called the null hypothesis. Something like an initial claim. Also, the null hypothesis written in what mathematical form may contain any of these operators that is equal to, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. So don't forget that always the null hypothesis contains either equal to, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. Never write a null, I don't know if I say it's now or no. Please, you know the spelling, so how you pronounce it. So the null hypothesis, right? Always make sure if it's a less than, you should have an equal to. But if it's a greater than, you should have an equal, not only less than, not only greater than. Else, you are referring to another kind of hypothesis, and that will make the null hypothesis wrong for you. So put it at the back of my head. Always it is either an equal to, based on the question, either greater than or less than, greater than equal to, or less than or equal to. Also, the null hypothesis is always about a population parameter, not a sample statistic. So this means that null hypothesis is about a whole population, not a part of it. So we are saying that Ghanaians are hospitable. We're not talking about Ghanaians is the whole, so it's always about the whole entire population, though we might use a sample of the population to prove it, but our main focus is proving something about the entire population. So you might pick some people from the various regions, how they treat others, and we can conclude based on that then it means that the entire Ghanaian population are or is hospitable. So that's the null hypothesis. So always with the null hypothesis, when you are defining it, it should have a population mean, which is the mean, and not a sample mean, which is what? The X bar. So always the null hypothesis will either contain the mean, right, or not the sample mean, as the X bar. And then and it can also contain the what? Sorry. It can also contain the how do you call it, the proportion, that is P. So we have different types of population parameters. P is also part, it's just a proportion, and then U is kind of like the whole, but P is kind of like part, but it's also a population parameter. So if you are writing a null hypothesis and you are using either X bar or the P bar, then you are wrong. So please follow me with the PowerPoint, all right, because I'm not getting a drawing image here to use it. So, okay, let me write here. So what I'm trying to say that in the null hypothesis, when you are defining it, it's always about the mean, which is a population mean, or the proportion, which the P, which is what? A proportion mean, a proportion parameter, and not the sample mean or the proportion mean. We just use these ones to prove these ones, but our intention is based on these ones. Please be careful, because you might not know, you might see sample mean, proportion mean, and then you might pick them and use them to define your null hypothesis. And from the start, everything become wrong, absolutely wrong. Thank you. So let's move on. So example, we can have, so this is how we write the null hypothesis. This is how we define it. So we can have something like this. So we define it like this. H subscript 0, right, is to that the column. Then the mu is either greater than, so let me say, right, then population mean that stands now is 52, right? So that means greater than or equal to 52. That is one part. You can also have a null hypothesis that looks like this. So please, it's a column, but it's not coming properly, so bear with me. All right, so I've okay, so we have our mu being or less than or equal to 52. Then now okay, I'll use null so it's not sound like now. So null hypothesis, all right, should always contain these, should never have only greater than or only less than, should either be greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or equal to. So this is how you write the words, the null hypothesis. And this mu should never be like this. You should never use a sample statistic here. Either you can have this, which is correct, or when it comes to proportion, we can have this, which is the P. So because I'm drawing, that's why I say, bear with me. Less than or equal to 52. Then we can have another one, which looks like this. Okay, sorry. P greater than or equal to 52. Based on the question. If the question is about proportion, you write it like this. If it is about population mean, you write it like this. But this P should never be P bar, else from the start you are wrong. So as you go through, you will know how to keep all these things in your mind. But let's pray that I don't get tired easily on the way. All right. So so that's what is over here. Example, we can have H, that's the null hypothesis, that mu greater than or equal to 5, and not sample mean greater than or equal to 5. Can have population, the proportion being less than or equal to 0.08, but not a proportion mean being less than or equal to 0.05. Hope I've explained it thoroughly. Thank you. So please like, and comment. I really need your comments. You see, just a word of encouragement, anything, you see, because it's not easy to put up this to help others. It wasn't easy. I'm not saying I need your appreciation. No. I'm doing it because God wants me to do it. But then, at least, just, a thank you, a God bless you, will be appreciated, and like the video too. So now move on to the second type of what? The hypothesis. We have the alternative hypothesis. So alternative, as the name to alternative, so it's like kind of like the other way, the opposite. So let's say if I am a boy, what would be the alternative for a boy is a girl? It's like the opposite. The opposite. Okay. So the alternative hypothesis is the opposite of the null hypothesis. The claim is a claim that does not stand now. So it's not something that is accepted now, but we are trying to, based on research that we'll do or we'll bring out, or evidence that will compile later, we will say that no, we don't want to accept the null hypothesis, we want to accept a new hypothesis. So that is what the alternative hypothesis is. It kind of challenges the null hypothesis. It's saying, no, I don't accept the null hypothesis. I'm bringing up a new hypothesis, and based on my evidence, if my evidence is sufficient enough, then you can accept my new claim. But if it is not, then I would back down and maintain your null hypothesis. Hope you understand that. So example is Ghanaians are not split up. So initially we're like, and then now that is what is hold or is holding or is on hold. Like Ghana is a peaceful country. But someone saying no, Ghana is not a peaceful country. So the alternative hypothesis comes with a why, because they are trying to challenge what is already there, the status quo. So it comes or brings about or comes with what? A why. And when you're able to prove, then it's on you. So all these examples challenge the null hypothesis in the previous slide, so that the research based on the alternative hypothesis validates the authenticity of the null hypothesis. So it's like the null hypothesis is what everyone is believing, but when you bring out an alternative hypothesis and you look for information to back yours, and it's true or it's false, it's kind of give a stronghold to the null hypothesis. So something like you say that, okay, so Amma is a good girl, but then I say that Amma is not a good girl, and I bring evidence that she smokes weed, she goes out at night, then it can what tell Amma's mother that, oh, indeed, Amma is not a good girl. So it's kind of either strengthens the null hypothesis or weakens it. So that is what the alternative hypothesis is. They get it. So it's kind of helping us to back or strengthen or weaken the null hypothesis. So since the alternative hypothesis challenges the null hypothesis, then the alternative hypothesis will also be about a population parameter, not a sample statistic. So we are saying that the null hypothesis is about a population parameter that is contained either the population mean or the proportion, right? And not a sample mean or the proportion mean. So since the alternative hypothesis is challenging this population mean, it means that it also falls under what the population means. It can't be a sample statistic. Okay, but we'll just use the sample statistic to what give a basis to our population mean, but we don't depend on that sample. We don't solely look up to that sample statistic. So that's basically what it means. All right, so error in hypothesis. So we know that hypothesis is just, so please, as we are going through, we can write something that like get it. Don't just listen, because it's the brain is such that, or if you're able to, or if you cultivate the habit of writing a lot, the brain captures it, and even as you write, your eye how should I put it, mesmerize it. Okay, so I want to say like it captures how you're writing, so it will stick. So please write something in. All right, so we know that in any claim, or if you are in any research, there's bound to be mistakes, because you can't be very sure that the information that you got can back your claim. So for example, I said Amma is a bad girl. Her mother said it's a good girl. I'm saying she's a bad girl, so I went to look for evidence, and I'm saying she goes out at night, she smokes. But there can be a case that I just saw her buying the weed, but she didn't smoke. She went to give it to an elderly person, and in the night, she saw a friend outside and they were chatting. So that was the information I saw, but that is not the real thing. Or that is not the real thing I should have seen. Yes, so that is an error. There are two types of errors you can make in hypothesis that will make us make the wrong choice in either rejecting the null hypothesis or accepting the null hypothesis. We have the type 1 error. Someone said that, why should I read this? I want to know the calculation. If you don't understand this, then you can never solve the, how should I put it? The calculation aspect. You might choose the calculation aspect, but when the question is twisted and you don't understand this, trust me, I've been there before. All right, so type 1 error, we have two types of errors, type 1 error and type 2 error. So the type 1 error is that kind of error that we make, and then at the end, we end up rejecting the null hypothesis, which is the status quo, which shouldn't have been so. You get it? So saying that Amma's mother is saying Amma is a good girl. Now I'm saying she's a bad girl. But because I made error in the information I was looking for, I made Amma's mother change her mind that Amma is a bad girl, which shouldn't have been so. So that is a type 1 error, and it's represented by alpha. Alpha is called the level of significance. So when you hear level of significance, it's talking about alpha. That's the extent, the probability, or the extent to which a type 1 error can be made. That's the probability of making a type 1 error. And that's it is that level of significance that defines the rejection area, because it's kind of like the probability of you making that error. So when you draw a distribution curve or whatever, that's level of significance, you get it, will determine, based on our calculations, the area for what rejection. That if our calculation fall within that particular place, then we should reject it. Then it means our evidence is true. You get it? So the type 2 error is that it's just the opposite of type 1 error. So instead of rejecting the null hypothesis, we rather brought evidence that supported it, which shouldn't have been so. So suppose Ama's mother said Ama is Ama's mother is a good girl, right? And I said she's a bad girl. When I went to make my information, I saw that she was standing with a guy and they were just chatting, right? They were just standing there chatting. So, oh, maybe they are friends. So I said, oh, she's a good girl. Then I saw her going to church dressing. I said, oh, she's a good girl. Then I concluded that Ama is a good girl, that I was supporting the null hypothesis, which in fact, instead of going to church, she goes to that guy I saw standing there, his place. You get it? To do whatever they want to do, I don't know. Only God knows. You get it? So instead of getting that correct information and then rejecting the fact that she's a good girl, I got wrong information. I accepted the fact that she's a good girl. So that is the type 2 error. And we are not usually in this part, we don't usually focus on the type 2 error. I don't know as time goes, so whether that one I can't tell, but our focus is on the type 1 error. Tired, I'm getting tired. All right, so approaches towards hypothesis testing. So in every topic, we have steps, methods, approach towards solving. Hypothesis testing is not an exception. They have 3 ways of what testing hypothesis, right? That's approaches toward test our claims to either accept the null hypothesis or reject it based on what evidence, sufficient evidence. So we have the critical value approach, the p-value approach, and we have the proportions testing approach. So the critical value approach and then the proportions testing approach, they kind of go or have similar methods, just that it is the variables that will change. So because one is the critical value concerns an entire population. The proportions concern a part of an entire population. Proportions is kind of like a percentage. So like percentage testing approach is in a form of percentages, you get it. But the critical value is in the form of actual figures. So that's what makes it different. So the variables will change, but the methods are the same. With the p-value, the p-value approach is kind of like an alternative to the other two types of approach. So like when you are in the critical value approach and you solve it this way, the p-value is like another way to solve it. And the proportion testing approach and you solve it this way, the p-value is like kind of like another way of solving the proportion testing approach. So the p-value is for like an alternative way of solving or tackling the critical value approach and the proportion testing approach. But I would advise you, because in the part 2 of the hypothesis testing, we're looking at 2 populations. It's kind of going to get rough. So I advise that you keep the critical value approach and the proportion testing approach in your head. But then if you think it is not going to work, then I don't know if I should do the p-value is not in this PowerPoint, no. Because I'm not a fan. Not I'm not a fan of, or I don't understand it, but I prefer not to confuse people. I understand it by God's grace. Some people might understand it, so others might not. But I prefer that you stick to the critical value approach and the proportion testing approach based on the question, so that when you reach the 2 populations, you won't get confused. But if you want me to do the p-value approach, just say it in the comment section. And with the help of the Holy Spirit, I'm very sure that I can help you. Amen. All right. So under each approach, that's for the all of them under the approach, we use the distribution table, either the Z table or the T table. So you see when we're doing sampling distribution and then for probabilities, we didn't really talk about the T table, right? But now here, the T table is very important. It's very important. It's very important. Sample distribution, sometimes the T table can also hold there, but we didn't really see it there. But here we'll be seeing it. But it's like kind of you have to know based on the question. The question will not tell you have to use a Z or the T, but based on certain conditions that you must keep in your head, to be able to know should I use a Z table or a T table, and each has its own way, but not that different. Okay. So the alpha is always positive, right? So it's within the range of usually within the range of 5% and 10%. Okay. So it's always positive. It's not negative. So if it's positive, how would you be able to solve? Like, you get it? Because some of the answers might be negative, but if it's positive, how would I know? Oh, okay, the rejection rate will be on my left, right, center. So that's why we have 3 other tests. So all these tests appeal to all the approaches in hypothesis testing. You get it? So we have one, the upper tail test. So under this test, the alpha is what? Positive. Alpha is positive throughout, but the test statistic, that's the Z or the T value, should be also positive. So if you want to get an upper tailed test, I want to know where the test should be. If it's upper tailed, it means that the Z or the T value is positive. And then from the 3 curves here, the one to the right is the upper tail test. And that is how we draw it. If the Z value or the T value known as the test statistic is positive, means the alpha will be on the right, as shown at the far, as shown here. That's the curve on my right. There's a lower tail test. The alpha is positive, but the test statistic is what? Negative. That's if it is negative, it means the alpha will be on the left. So it just the test help you to know where should the rejection region, which is represented by alpha B. Else, if you don't know where it to be, are you going to put at the center? It's not just by your default that it should always be on the left, right, center. No. It's based on the statistics value. That's the Z or the T's value. The sign attached to the value, whether it's positive or negative. And then the two-tailed test is alpha is so when you read the question, you realize that, oh, this is a two-tailed test. You don't need to know the Z value or the T value before you know where the alpha will be. Simply because it's two-tailed test, means it will be on both sides. So you divide the alpha by 2, because the alpha given is only 1. But the question is on both sides, and you can't use the same figure, else you are overestimating the value of alpha. So you have to divide it by 2 and put it on both sides, just like what's in the middle. But I forgot to write it down here because I was in the hurry, so I'm sorry. But this is the middle one, is the two-tailed test. Hope you understand. Getting tired? That is all good. All right, so now the critical value approach and the proportions approach. So these ones I was like, they have some similar characteristics, right? Okay, so the steps involved in these approaches are very similar, unlike the p-value approach. So because the p-value approach is like an alternative way, so it means it's a different method, but these two approaches have similar methods, but just the variables that would change. You get it? So what changes the variable in the formula, right? So it is vital to know the steps since it is a sure way to stay focused in the research and help you get a right answer. Trust me, sometimes I see questions, I'm like, wow, Holy Spirit, if I don't know these steps, I'll get confused, right? Because there are so many information in a question, but then if you're able to capture these steps, not chew them, practice, because this is not the end. Just listening to this is going to help you understand better, but you've got to practice. So as you practice, the steps will stick in the head, in the brain. That is how the brain works. The more your hands is moving, your eyes is visualizing, and the brain is capturing and keeping it. You get it? So the first step is specify the population value of interest. What kind of population value am I interested in? Because it's a critical value approach and proportion value approach, and they are using the same step. You need to know which population value of interest you are interested in. Am I interested in a population mean or a proportion? Is the question talking about an real or actual figures, or is the question talking about the entire population, or is the question talking about a part of the population? So the proportion is different for some from is different from what a sample. So the sample is like, okay, so if I'm looking at a population, the entire population, then I'll pick some. But with the proportion, if I pick a part of the population, then within that part of the population, when I take some from them, that becomes the sample. So proportion is different from what sample. So after you've specified, if the question is actually about population mean, that is the mean. If the question is talking about a population mean, then it's looking at the critical value approach. But it's talking about a proportion, then it's looking at the proportions approach. Then the second step is formulate the appropriate null and then alternative hypothesis. So after you determine, okay, so if it is a population mean, then it means that I'm interested in what this symbol mu. But if it's a proportion, then it means I'm interested on P. So after you have been able to identify whether it's mu or P, then you'll be able to know how to formulate them based on this. So look at an example shot, but I want you to understand, because if you don't understand and you are doing the example, you might not understand. And I might not talk too much in the example because I'm already getting tired. Hey, our lecturers do very well. God richly bless them and strengthen them and grant them more favors and love. In Jesus' name. All right, so the third one is specify the desired level of significance. As I stated earlier, our desired level of significance is represented by alpha. You get it? Alpha. So when you see alpha, that is your level of significance. Or when the question doesn't write alpha, but writes or level of significance, you have to know the symbol is alpha. And alpha is kind of like an A. I don't know if I'm able to write alpha, but I usually write A, not computer. All right, so the fourth one is obtain sample evidence and compute the test statistic. Now we've identified our level of significance, but before we can draw the curve and know which side the level of significance will be to determine our rejection area, we need to know the sign of the value of the test statistic. That is, if the test statistic is either positive or negative, then that will help us know whether our rejection region will be on the left, on the right, or on both sides. Then after you've determined that, you now draw your curve comfortably, no rush, and you know where the rejection region will be. Then the last step is you read. Okay, so the sixth step is now you convert the A, that's the alpha, the level of significance, into a Z value to make it suitable to compare with the original Z or T value. So what I'm saying here is that now you've calculated an original Z value at step 4. It is in your book. But now you are trying to make a decision based on the alpha, which is the probability or the extent to which you can make an error. But alpha is A and Z is Z. You can't compare A to Z. A is having stroke, Z is having dash down. They are not the same. So in order to make them eligible for comparison, you have to change the A to a Z value to make them compatible. To make them compatible. So it's just like playing a football and you put a male and a female to play the football. I can assure you that the male will win because their level of skills or even let's say strength is not the same. So you can't base on that to say the guy is strong, is a good footballer. No. You have to bring another male. And when they are able to compete, they have the same gender. That's when you prove who is the oboro, who is the guy. You get it? Okay. So the last step is you read your Z value from the distribution table carefully. You see, I've italicized that carefully and compare with the original Z value, which we got in step 4. Then you make your decision whether to reject the null hypothesis, which was our original claim, or we should accept it. I hope you understand. I've explained it really well, the help of the Holy Spirit, and I'm sure if you don't understand it like this, then I don't know how you want our lectures to explain to you. By the way, I'm a student. All right, so please just few seconds. All right, so I'm back. Sorry, I had to drink water. Suffocating. All right, so you missed me? So the next thing is now we are taking each approach one by one. Under the critical value approach, that's what you are looking at. So the population parameters like so under the critical value approach, you find population parameters like the mu, that's like when you're given a question, you get it. You find population parameters like the mu, this is the mu. I want to bold it. Oh, my laptop is not responding. But I hope you've seen it where the cursor is. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. The population mean. Let me write it here so that it's better. So under the critical value approach, in the question you see, because the population, the critical value approach and the proportion are quite similar, so you have to know which of them is the question asking you to do. So if you see in the question you see this mu, maybe the question doesn't write mu there, but when you read, you realize that there's not kind of like there's no percentage in the question. Then it means it's talking about mu, or it's a critical value approach. But when you find percentages in the question, it's talking about proportions. So that's the basic thing I can say. That's the basic explanation I can give. If you find percentage in a question, like something that is kind of out of a whole, it's talking about proportions approach. But if it is normal values, it's talking about what? The critical value approach. So please keep that in mind. All right. So let me see. All right. So it's still not responding. All right, so this is a table that I've constructed. You can copy it, pause the video and copy it, because it really help you. You never know. All right, so conditions to note when you're calculating test statistics. So as I said earlier, when you're calculating the test statistics, there are some conditions, because based on the conditions or based on the way our questions satisfy the conditions, then we'll be able to determine the kind of table to use in what reading our solution. So if the condition favors the z value, we'll use the z table. But if the condition favors the t value, we'll use what? The t table. All right. So the first condition is if this symbol, is what? Standard deviation. That's the population's standard deviation. We have one that is the sample standard deviation. We come there, but have the population standard deviation. Then if you know that the question explicitly gives you that, then you use the word z statistic and the z table. And the formula for finding the z statistic is as shown here. If the standard deviation of the population is not known, but we know the standard deviation for the sample. So you say that the whole Ghana, we can't we can't go around every country and then get information again, like make our decision, but we'll take a sample of it. But our focus on the population, though the sample is what helping us. So if we don't know the standard deviation for the entire population, but then we know the standard deviation, which is represented by S of the sample that we've taken, then we can use that in our test statistic. But to use that, there is a condition. If the sample size is very large, that's n is what greater than 30, then you can still use the z table and the z statistic, but the formula will still hold. What will change is this: it will no longer be this symbol, that the population standard deviation, but will be this S, that is the sample standard deviation. That is the condition. If it is not known, the population standard deviation is not known, but then we know the standard deviation for the sample we've taken. However, the sample size, which is n, is greater than 30, then we can still use the z statistic and replace the standard deviation with what? S, because we assume that if the population size is odd, the sample size is very large, then even if we don't have the standard deviation for the entire population, using that samples population can kind of give us some certainty about the population's standard deviation. I hope you understand. Then the last one is if the population standard deviation represented by this is unknown, but we know the standard deviation is represented by S of the sample we've taken. However, the sample size is less than 30. We can't use the z statistic, but the z statistic and the z table is for what? A normal distribution. Something that is normal, is acceptable. It's not abnormal. But if the sample size is less than 30, and we still don't know the, how should I put it, the standard deviation of the entire population, we can't use the z statistic. But with the first condition, even if the standard deviation is known, but the sample size is less than 30, we can use it. But with the rest, if it is not known, based on the condition that the sample size must be greater than 30, then you can use the z table and the z statistic. But if not, you have to use the word t statistic and the t table. And the formula is Tn minus 1. So the n minus 1 stands for the degree of freedom. So the t table is kind of different from the z table. So in the t table, we have degree of freedom. Okay, so let me see if I can find the T table. So this is a T table. So we see that this part is the degree of freedom, right? So these figures, and realize that in the Z table, the figures ranges from negative 3.9 to positive 3.9, right? But in T table, we start from 1. So if you use the Z statistic, okay, if you use the Z statistic, you're not going to get 1. Like, you get it. You're not going to get 1, 2, 3, 4. Not that you need point E. But here in the T table, we need the degree of freedom. And we can find that by subtracting 1 from the sample size, which is what, N, right? But that doesn't mean this N, we subtract 1 from, no. We put this one there just to show us that in our reading, we need a degree of freedom. But this N is the original sample size. All right, so that's it. Hope you understand. All right, so an example under the critical approach. An example under the critical approach, when the standard deviation for the entire population is what? Is null. So example 1. So as I'm saying it, try practicing it to get it. Practice makes a man perfect. I'm going to be able to practice too much because I've written a lot of information in this PowerPoint. You get it? That's why I want you to write it yourself. But if need be, why won't I? I'll do it. So 1, a customer relations employee believes that the average waiting time of customers has increased and is now about 52 minutes. So that's why I took it from my lecture slides that people really understand it better, yes. The company decides to verify her claim. Doesn't mean the lecturer didn't teach well, no. See, in a classroom setting, time is limited, right? But outside the classroom setting, you can have a little bit extra time to explain better. You get it? So under the classroom pressure, some people might not be able to understand this grasp quickly. Okay, so please don't get me wrong. Our lecturer is perfect, teaches absolutely well. If you didn't teach, how would I have understood? So we all have different way of grasping things. So my lecturer is perfect, teaches well. And my TA2, good man. Right, so a customer relations employee believes that the average waiting time of customers has increased and is now about 52 minutes. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video. The company decides to verify her claim. So this question, someone was saying, how would I? Someone just, oh, okay. So the sample, so now the mean is 52, right? When I'm forming the hypothesis, how would you determine whether it to be greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, based on how the question frames it? So when I say the average waiting time of customers has increased and is now about 52 minutes. So how would you know whether this is the null hypothesis or alternative hypothesis? So realize that we said the null hypothesis is always less than or equal to. So the question said has increased and is now about 52. So it means that the mu, so mu is used, so this is the mu. Whenever I'm speaking, I say mu, I'm talking about this one, the mu. Oh, this one. So when I say mu, this is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so it represents the population mu. Right, so the mu is what's greater than 52. If you read this from this question, it's saying it's now about 52. Someone will just, hey, so the mu is greater than 52. But don't forget that we said our null hypothesis should have less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. So if the person is saying that it's now about 52, then it means talking about alternative hypothesis, because don't forget that there is someone who is making that claim. The second part is the company decides to verify a claim. It means that is not the status quo. That is not the status quo. Status quo is that our mean is either less than or equal to 52. Right? Our mean is now is either less than or equal to 52. But she is saying that it's greater than 52. So whose one is the null hypothesis and whose one is the alternative? Is the employee's one is the alternative, and the company's on the status quo is the null. So the first step is, so let me consider the question. During the investigation, a sample mean of 53.1 was recorded, and the sample size was 64. The recorded standard deviation of the population was 10. Assume the significance level is 10%. Should the company accept or reject this claim? Explain. So these are the 7 steps. Okay. So the first I was like, specify the population value of interest, but I wrote at interest, sorry. That's what is the company wanting to prove? To prove whether it's true that a mean has increased or not. So our interest here is mean. So the second step is formulate the null and alternative hypothesis. So we know that it's talking about mean. So if written our H certificate 0, our column, written our mean. So now what value, what symbol are we writing? Less than or equal to. Because the girl is trying to say that it's greater than 52. So if it's greater than 52, it means the initial is what? Less than 52. So that is what will be there for this. And because the sign is not equal to, the test graph will be a one-tailed test, either lower tail or upper tail. So don't forget, whenever the sign, when you're writing your hypothesis, the sign is not equal to, put your mind, okay, it's going to be a one-tailed test, either lower or upper. And by now, you should know which one is the lower tail test and the upper tail test. And then the alternative hypothesis, which is H subscript A equal on U be greater than 52, which is her claim, right? Her claim. So sometimes you might find the alternative hypothesis. If you're able to get that from the question, it's easy to get the null hypothesis. Except that you get the null hypothesis from the question and use that to get your alternative hypothesis. So either way, if you get the alternative hypothesis, you'll be able to get your null because they are opposite. And don't forget the sign. Alternative is always greater than, less than, or not equal to. But the null or the null is always what? Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or equal to. All right, so the third one is specify the desired level of what? Significance. So the answer is the alpha is equal to 0.10. Remember I said the desired level of significance is always what? Alpha. So in the question it said 10%. And 10% is the same as 0.10. Guys, I'm getting tired. Ooh, I might not finish all that. All right, so the fourth step is obtain the sample evidence and compute the test statistic. So the Z will work here because the Z statistic will work here because our population standard deviation is known. They gave it to us in their question here, which I've highlighted, 10. So now, since we know the Z will work, we put down the Z formula, then you look out for your variables, okay? So our mu is 54, our standard deviation is 10, our sample mean is 53.1 in the question, and our sample size is 64, right? So we put the formula that just punch calculator work, and the answer will be 0.88. Because the original Z value here is positive, then we'll have an upper tail test. So in step 2, we kept in our head that because the sign is not equal to, but is greater than or equal to or less than or equal, it means a one tail test, either upper or lower. And in step 4, because the Z value was what? Positive, it means that it's an upper tail test. That is our alpha or our level of significance or our rejection area will be on the right. Hallelujah. So the fifth one is determine. Now that you know, okay, it's an upper tilted to be on the right, you can easily draw, right? So you determine the rejection region. So since the test is upper tilt, the rejection region will be at the right. So just as the graph here. So this one, the rejection region is the bar below where the red line is. I've written it here, you can see. So this part is our rejection region. It's on the right because upper tilted since our z value is positive. And then that's why I've written the alpha is 0.10, and that defines the rejection area. And all the other parts will represent the no rejection area. If my rejection area is right, it means if there's rejection, if we don't reject, it means we'll accept. So no rejection and rejection. Then move on to our sixth step. We convert the alpha value into a z value, as we said earlier, so that they will be eligible for comparison. So how do we do that? So now our alpha value is 0.10. And then, so this is what you have to take note. When I'm reading the z value of the alpha, if the original z value is positive, if you want to compare with alpha must be positive before you can compare. You get it? Alpha must be positive before you can compare. So like I was saying, like the football, if you want to compare their level of strength, if the male is a slim guy, you have to bring a slim guy to make the comparison better. But if it's a heavy guy, you have to get a heavy guy. So that's what this one is trying to say. If it is the z value, the original guy, if it's positive, then our alpha value should be read from the positive table. But we realize that in our positive table, which is what I've shown here, so let me show the real table. So I'm moving to the z table. So this is our positive table. So alpha, the z value was positive, 0.80. So alpha must be positive. So we must go to the positive table, right? But I realize that the positive table, this side, only this side is shaded, which is telling us that all the values here are for this region. Any region or values in this region are not in this table. But we are looking for the alpha, which is in this region. So just like in the probability where we want a region, but we're reading from a table where the region is not, we subtract from 1. The same way here, you subtract the alpha's figure from 1 before reading, else you make a thorough mistake. You get it? So our alpha was what? 0.1. So if I subtract 0.1 from 1, I'll get 0.9. So if I'm reading, I'll come here. So read from here. So we read from here, this side. This area, read from here, not here, because we are interested in finding here. So our value should be read here to know what value to pick from here. But there's something we had this, but we're looking for this. But here it's the other way around. But since the value we want is in this region, but then this region's values are not here, subtract the A's value, the alpha's value from 1, and we'll read it from here. So we get 0.9. And then you read the value, which is the closest to the alpha's figure, but the lower number. You get it? So it's very close to alpha. I can easily get alpha right, but it's the lowest of it. So this is what I mean. So we are looking for 0.9. So 0.9, 0.9000. So we come here reading. Press 0.93. No. No one will say, oh, okay, 3 can be made 0. No. Don't look for one which is closest to 0.90. So we are coming. No. If yes, 3, yes, 5. So it means I'm go up, right? Up. This is 9, 8, 9. So 8, I can someone say, okay, let me round the 9. I'll get what 8. But these 4, right? they are not that kind of sufficient for us. Because if, let's say, I want to start the running from the last figure, right? On the time run, I can't reach this 9 to make here come here and get what 1. So let me look for another figure. So if I start the running from 2, 2 can't is not bigger than 5, or it's not 5, so I can't get here for here to get here. So so if I come here 0, nah, that one too. But if I come here 7, if I round this one 7, right? If I round it forward, I add 7 is greater than 5, so I can add a 1. If I add it to the 9, the 9 to round 9, I'll get my 0 points. I see this, and then the next one is 0.9015. You get it? But it's having 1.5 here. But we are interested in getting what? 0.9000. You get it? So if I round from the least figure 7 to here, the others become 0, 0, and this will become my answer. So it means that this is the closest, but at least this is the closest to what? 0.9, but it's the least one. You get it? Then you look for its corresponding figures. You trace here, then you trace here to get the z value. So it was 1.2, then you add 0.08 and get what? 1.28. So our z value for our alpha is 1.28. Hope you understand. Someone will say, so what if I'm not giving a positive table? Can't I still find for alpha? You can. Why can't you? Just like when we're doing the probabilities, we're able to find even using a negative table the same way. So here, because alpha is the z value is positive, so alpha must be positive. But then we know that from our basics that this drawing, this curve is symmetric about the mean. So the mean is this 0. So from here to the center, which means this side is equal to this side. It's just the sign that separates them, but their values are the same. So it means that this side is the same as this side, just that the signs will change. The figures will be the same, but the signs will change. So if I want this side, but I know this side, and here's the other negative side, I'll just make it positive. So let's see if I'm true, if I'm correct or wrong. Sorry. So I'm looking for 0.1, the closest, but what the least. So 0.1. 0.1. 0.1. So 0.1. Sorry. So I'll pick this, right? Because we want 0.1000. You get it? It is what 0.1003. And then the other one is what? 0.0985. You get it? Someone say, okay, why don't I pick this one? Don't pick this one, right? If you are confused, maybe the two figures are very close, you can pick their z values. So this will be negative 1.28 plus negative 1.29 divided by 2 and use that figure. Or pick the one that, let's say you see this one is 0.0985. The other one was 0.8997. So you see when you round the 7, automatically the 9 rounds, right? But this one, when you round the 5, automatically this will become 9. It doesn't run automatically. You get it? So that's why I'll pick this. One will say, okay, since they are just close, I'll pick the 2 and divide by 2 and pick the answer. You are not wrong. There's difference. I'm not sure the 0.05 difference will give you wrong. But I'll pick this because if I round this 0, 0, you see, it's almost approximately 0.100. But if I round this once, I'm not going to get. And then I don't want a 100 or a 101 here. That's why I did pick this 102 because there's a 2 which is bigger than this middle 0, right? So I hope you understand. But because we want this positive side, but we read from the negative side because they are symmetric about the mean. I'll just pick the negative 1.28 and write it positive. So I'll just write 1.28 instead of negative 1.28. And you're right. And that's what we got for the other side. You get it? So I've done it before. You can watch my sample distribution video. They're using the normal distribution. I've done 2 videos on that, so you can watch. So I'll talk about it again. All right. So reading from the slide, I've said all here. So our answer is 1.428. So we move on. Oh, I'm tired. I think the video will be getting long. So I might pause when I'm done with this, right? And I'll do another video another time because I'm getting tired. So the last step is we're like now compare and make your decision. So here we compare the original z value which we have, which was 0.88, and the z value of the alpha, which is what 1.28, to make a conclusion. Since the question is an upper tilde test and the rejection region is at the right, if the positive z value, the original z value, which was positive obviously, is greater than the positive value of the alpha when it was converted to z. If it is less than 8, it means it will fall within the rejection range. So all I'm saying that if you get the z value for your alpha, so it means the alpha is here, right? So look at this graph. Now our z value is here 1.28. And I'm saying that our rejection region is this side. So it means if here is the rejection region, it means this region is no rejection zone. So if your original z value falls within this region, that is greater than this z value, this a value, then you reject because it falls in the rejection region. But if it's less than this value and falls within this region, you will accept. So realize that 0.88 is less than 1.28. It means it falls in this region. Therefore, we do not reject the original hypothesis. We do not reject the null hypothesis. Don't forget, not the alternative hypothesis. Our focus is the alternative hypothesis was challenging the null hypothesis, but our evidence is to prove whether indeed we should hold on to the null hypothesis or not. Don't look at the alternative hypothesis. All should be wrong because our focus on accepting or rejecting the null hypothesis. All right. So from the above, the original z value is less than the z value of the alpha, and lies within the do not reject region. Therefore, we conclude that there is not sufficient evidence to prove. So now, after you are done, you know that okay, we shouldn't reject the null hypothesis. It doesn't end there. You've not made a valid conclusion. So what should we do? If we shouldn't reject the null hypothesis, so what does it mean? It means that the null hypothesis was that the average waiting time was less than or equal to 52, but the person was saying it's above. So now we've gotten evidence that no, it's not above, it's less than. So our conclusion is that there is no sufficient evidence to prove that the average waiting time has increased above the 52, but then it's below or equal to 52. That will be your valid conclusion. It's based on your understanding of the question. So it's just that if it's rejection, it means okay, so you should reject. You have sufficient evidence to reject the fact that the mean is less than or equal to 52. But if it falls in the do not reject region, it means that we don't have sufficient evidence to prove that or to reject the null hypothesis. If you don't know long English, simple like that. Right, so I think I'm tired and then the video will get longer, so I will end here. So what I talked about was the critical value approach, and we looked at an example on when the standard population deviation is low. That was what we did, and I walked us through the steps, each of the steps that I talked about above. Okay, so that we know how to approach it, so that you're able to practice and the step is in your head. See, it's easy, simple. But I don't want the video to be too long, and I'm also tired, so I'll end the video here another time when God grants me life, which He will obviously give me. But if I get the time, I'll do another video on the t value, right? So if you want me to do it, just show encourage me, just encourage me, get it. It won't take time. Just type in, please. Chayo is Korean language. Please, fighting. Please, oh, why not? I'll be happy. Okay. So thank you so much. So if I'm able to do that video and I go through the T and then the proportion, I have some questions that we can solve. That one will not go through the step. Just stop and I'll be explaining. If I'm not able to finish, if you don't encourage me and I don't do another video, then I don't know what happens. So thank you so much for watching the video. Please subscribe, please share, please like, and God will surely bless. And please pray for me too, okay? Pray for me. God bless you so much. Enjoy your day. Bye bye.